Hello, my name is Annalise Jones, and my company is called Lucia Learning. It's tutoring and teaching, mostly for homeschoolers. And today, this is a free workshop for you parents who have teens who have been resistant, hesitant to do math or to write. And we're going to talk about why that is and what you can do about it and the things that I offer for that. I see this a lot. As I got into this field, I was pretty surprised how much I saw this. And I think there's a lot of good reasons for that we could all relate to and understand. Um, some because of the parent, some because of the homeschooling situation, some because of the child. And I don't think a lot of you realize how common it is. And so you're struggling in your homes saying, why can't we get this right? Why won't they listen to me? Are we the only one? Does my child have a future? I've been through some of that to some degree myself too, right? I understand. I'm a homeschooling mom myself. I've got 5 kids. My oldest graduated a year ago, and it was a bit of a struggle to get him to graduate, actually. So I'm with you. I understand. So let's start this little free course today. I've got some things I would love to share with you. Okay, you might hear the word behind, and I know this is pretty controversial, some homeschoolers are all across the board, right? Some homeschoolers know what grade level is for everything, and maybe because the state requires it, and you have to keep them doing a certain number of credits or make sure that they're on grade level for certain skills and work, right? And that can be stressful. Like there's a lot of pressure for you to keep up as a homeschool parent and to put a lot of attention on that. The state that I'm in is more lax. And a lot of people here are kind of like casual homeschoolers or unschoolers, and no one's really checking in on us to see what level our kids are at. And it's easy to focus on the fun things and not the work. And I would say in my circles, I see a lot of creative homeschoolers. Like they're brilliant, they're athletic, or they're super musical. They're into their digital art or coding or theater, music, right? Just a lot of creativity. And those gifts are beautiful and wonderful. And then a lot of times on the same token, on this, the other side of that token, we see sometimes they're struggling with the basic skills, right? And so you might call your teen behind, or some more unschooling parents, they don't like that term. They say, well, compared to what? And they have a valid point. Like the term behind means you're comparing it to a standard. And depending on the state you live in, that standard might matter, or it might not. Or even to you personally, that standard might matter, or it might not, right? And so I come from a place of just respecting whatever philosophy you are currently sitting in. And I just want to support you either way. Maybe you don't like calling them behind, but you are concerned because you thought that would be different, right? You're a little surprised, well, when now they're a teenager and their handwriting looks terrible, they're having trouble writing a paragraph and knowing what to say. That was my situation with my son. I mean, I fought him, and he couldn't write anything. So then we learned about dysgraphia, and that's what I'm going to tell you about today. Maybe you're wondering why they can't get the times tables down, or however much you work with them on math, it seems like you're always teaching the same lesson again because they're not retaining it, right? Or like as they move on, then they forgot the skills from last year. And so it's just like math can be a circle sometimes. It's just like going back through the same skills repeatedly. So maybe just for your own sanity as a parent or your own concern for them, you see these symptoms start to come out, and maybe you don't like putting labels on them. I can understand that too. I have a degree in psychology as well as with my English, and um, uh, I'm aware of psychiatric labels, but I don't tend to use them very much. I might just talk about them as a way to describe somebody's personality, but I know the pros and cons of using labels. Also, I think it's very important to be aware if there is a learning disorder, it will really help you to understand why they're struggling, what's happening in their brain, and then what you can do about it. So you don't have to use the label, but you could just look into it to educate yourself on some options and what to do about it. Okay, this is lots of homeschool teens. They've got trouble writing. Now, writing is 2 different things. It might be handwriting, or it might mean composing. And composing means you're coming up with what to say. You're thinking of either expository facts, because you're just going to tell something like in an essay, or a story. Either way, you have to come up with what to say, right? Unless you're just going to plagiarize something. They have trouble remembering basic math facts or the skills where you keep coming around back to those same skills. A lot of teens, they think they're the only ones. And so they try to hide it. They focus on their strengths. They focus on their social lives and where it's safe, and they don't have to talk about math and no one sees their writing, right? A lot of families, I see this a lot, when they started struggling with math, they gave up. It kind of went their back burner. Homeschool moms have so much to deal with, and a lot of times you focus on what you can get done instead of just having that same fight over and over, right? So these teens think they're dumb, they lack confidence, and I see this in the kids I work with where it flows over, it spills over into other areas of their life if they think they're dumb and if they lack confidence. And that's where I would get concerned as the parent. If you see your child lacking confidence, the answer is not to pretend it's not there and to like not talk about math at all. I don't think that's helping them, because that's always in the back of their mind that they can't do it. Their friends are doing algebra and they're struggling with the times tables. That's just reinforcing that they're dumb. I think it would be good to address it and to find some gentle, patient, loving help and a positive environment where they can overcome some of those things. We don't want them to be shut up and not know how to hold their space in the world, not know how to be confident and strong, right? And that's the main concern here. That's what we as parents struggle with when we see our teens with beliefs, belief systems that they're not good enough, that they're dumb, that they can't do anything no matter how hard they try, right? That's really concerning. Okay, why does this happen? Why is this going on with them? So this falls along with ADHD commonly, which also goes along with learning disorders. If your child has a learning disorder, they very well could have ADHD as well, / autism spectrum. There was a big overlap with all of these things. The traditional classroom didn't work for them. Maybe they were in school for a while and you notice that they were behind. You notice that they're not learning at school. It's not working for them. Plus they're being compared openly, publicly to all their peers. Plus they're getting grades telling them that they're not good enough and that they're dumb because they can't get a very good grade, right? That's a lot of pressure. So you did the right thing to bring them home. But now what do you do now that they're home, right? Homeschool moms are busy and overwhelmed. There are so many subjects to cover. And if you're doing this with multiple kids, yes, it's so easy just to forget the one that's hard, just to put it aside till next year, maybe come back to it later, except for then a few years pass and we didn't come back to it. I'm guilty of that as well, right? Also homeschool is flexible. Yeah, I just said this. It's easy to overlook things and just give up on those difficult tasks. Okay, so this is who I am. Before we go any further, I want to introduce myself. Like I said, I'm a homeschool mom myself. I've got a psychology and English degree. I also excelled in math. So I like using those 3 skills in my teaching. I just love the fact, this is kind of a coincidence, but I just love the fact that I fell into this field because I'm combining my psychology and my English degree, as I'm able to kind of like mentor and counsel families when I'm doing private tutoring. I'm able to get to know the teens and be gentle and give them a lot of positive encouragement. When I meet them, I can usually discern what's going on, right? I can usually tell their personality, I can tell their strengths and weaknesses, and I know to be gentle with those weaknesses, to focus on their strengths, to build their confidence, mostly just to go at a gentle pace and grade in a gentle way, or don't grade, right? That's something that we can talk about too. But I just love the opportunity where I can help them build their confidence and then mentor these families. So I do tutoring privately. I teach classes online. I teach about 10 or 12 or so classes every semester. And I love doing that group setting, but then sometimes they need that one-on-one help. And then the one-on-one help also brings up mentoring and accountability. So mentoring means we're talking about life, like we're not just talking about the academics, we're talking about life and managing your emotions and your stress. And then accountability means you can also report back, like not only are you going to do your math homework this week, but you wanted to exercise a couple times, right? Or you want to do something else that's going to build your confidence. And so they can come back and kind of report back to me and let me know that they're working on those things, because that also really helps them build their confidence, as well as helping to focus on their strength, right? So as they're working with math or writing with me, which can get, it's pretty mundane, or it's just we're plugging along. If I can get them talking about something that they love, whether it's dirt bikes or writing their own songs, and then they can set a goal on that as well and come back and feel excited about their strength while also addressing their weakness. And it's really good to pair those. And sometimes use their strength to address their weakness, right? So we talk about listening to their favorite music while doing their homework, or taking breaks from their homework to go practice their tricks if they're a gymnast, or a lot of kids do silks nowadays, so we have that conversation too. Okay, let me talk to you about learning disorders. Maybe you know about these, maybe you don't. Everyone knows about dyslexia pretty much. We know that that's like where they will do the mirror image letter or swap them in a word and mix those up. And usually it's letters, but also that happens with numbers, of course, like the kids who write their 5s backwards. That happens a lot, so they look like an S, or their 2s. I see 2s backwards a lot, so that would make it, no, not look like 7. But anyways, sometimes we just mix them up. And I have this conversation with them, like, I want to support you, and you can have your own handwriting, but if I can't read what it says, then we have a problem, right? So same thing with dysgraphia, the third one here. If their handwriting looks absolutely terrible with lots of scribbles and then misspelled words, that's dysgraphia. The problem with dysgraphia is this is different from composing. This doesn't have to do with coming up with what to say, but it's just your brain is talking to your hand. It's more related to the fine motor skills and just knowing how to hold your pencil and knowing how to move it smoothly, right? And so their brain is focusing so much on just how to move your pencil that they can't focus on how to spell the word, and they can't focus on if the B goes to the right or to the left, right? So a lot of times that dysgraphia will bring up the dyslexia, and you see those work together, and their work is very sloppy, and it's hard for them to focus on the actual skill. It's hard for them to focus on the times table or how to do the fraction when they're trying to write the number, right? So what we do for those is we have to separate those skills, have them write when they're not thinking, and have them think when they're not writing, right? So we have to separate these things. Dyscalculia, that was a hard one to say. This is difficulty computing numbers or memorizing facts. So this is math, right? For quick retrieval. So this is when they're really slow to learn the times tables, because while most of us can do the flashcards and we just remember that 8 times 6 is 48, for these kids, they have to compute it over and over and over again. Their brain is not remembering it. And that's a lot of work, right? I work with these kids and we're trying to do decimals and fractions, but then every step they have to compute it all over again, right? And hats off to them. They work hard. Their brain is going and going and going. And I tell them, we need to work on these math facts. We need to put some special attention on these, and find a way to review these daily, find a way to get these to stick, so that you don't have to work so hard to do, multiplying your fractions. So fine motor skills comes into play with some of these. If you can get your kid drawing, doodling, sewing, crocheting, stitching, like anything that uses those fingers, that it not only, so drawing is not only a nice art, it is also a brain exercise. And this is why everyone should draw. And in the 1800s, this was part of everyone's education. They would all draw. And we don't do that anymore. We hardly write at all now that we type, right? We need to get that pencil in the hand and move. Like, do you see how fine the movements are when I'm just moving the tips of my fingers? I'm not even moving my hand and wrist. And so that comes intuitively to some people, but to some they don't understand. So they might move their whole arm, or they might hold it really strange. You'll see them holding it like this, or no fingers at all. I knew someone who held their pen like this, and that makes it really difficult to smoothly go around, right? You want a pivot on your wrist and on the tips of your fingers. So those things are important. We need to have those conversations with the kids, but it doesn't have to be with writing an essay. It could just be with drawing a picture. Make it light and fun, just so they can practice that, get their wrist motion, talking to their brain, and getting more experience there. All right, and then if there is some ADHD involved, there usually is, it's going to be hard for them to come up with what to say, because their brain is in 10 different places, or they'll forget their writing prompt, and they forget what the instructions of what they're trying to do. So it's really hard for them just to focus and do their work. They need someone patiently, kindly guiding them along. Also with ADHD, they will more easily get frustrated. So then they shut down and, they did one math problem and now we're having a tantrum and it's over. I've been there. And developmental delays, that's another reason they might be behind, is just because developmentally, the brain just isn't ready to conceptualize that concept yet. So sometimes it is perfectly legitimate just to wait a few years and wait for that developmental delay to catch up, right? Poor confidence, we talked about that, and having a fixed mindset where they don't even believe that they can learn something. They believe that they're already done and that's set in stone, right? That's called a fixed mindset. And the opposite of that is a growth mindset, where we believe that we can learn new things and that something we've struggled with can be overcome. We can learn how to do a skill. So we need to give them some support in guiding them in the way that they're thinking and help them become more confident and think more positive, truthful things about themselves, right? Because it's not true that you can't learn something. It's not true that you're dumb. So we need to teach them to think truth. Okay, you may have heard about executive functioning. This is a bit more on the ADHD or on the autism spectrum, where this might be playing in to this complex situation, right? These are some of the executive functioning skills. There's a few more. You can read more in the book Smart But Scattered, and there's a special one for teens. I think the book is for the parents to help you guide them and mentor them. And the book is about, first of all, recognizing which of these you struggle with, but then knowing how to compensate for it and use your strengths, right? So people with ADHD will have trouble with some of these and not others. So you can use the strong ones to compensate for the weak ones. That also explains why ADHD looks so different in different kids. And it doesn't always mean a talkative, like, look at me, I talk pretty fast. It doesn't always mean a high energy, talkative, social person. Sometimes it's the opposite, where it's like the deer in the headlights, right? Because there's different executive functioning skills that are showing up in different people. And this also applies to autism spectrum, right? There's a huge overlap with ADHD and autism. And it's hard to pin down the right diagnosis. And for that reason, I'm not big on the labels and the diagnoses. It's more important just to say, oh, you struggle with emotional control. It doesn't matter if it's ADHD or not, but you definitely can pin down, you have trouble delaying gratification, right? Let's talk about that, because it's more specific and then it's more hands-on, and you can actually work in a functional way to address that specific issue rather than just slapping this huge label on it that carries all sorts of other meanings and implications and stress, right? Long-term goal setting, a lot of teens don't understand why they should study, because the benefits might not come right away, right? It's hard for them to focus on down the road, or to think about how they're going to feel when they're a grown-up and they don't know how to write a line on a paper, right? Or whatever the situation is. Okay, sustained attention, obviously, because that's ADHD. Response inhibition means, can you filter out what you're saying? Can you wait when you have an impulse and then consciously decide if you want to follow through on that, or do you just, everything is impulsive, right? And then prioritization and planning, right? Not to delay something until the night before it's due, not to try to write your paper in one sitting. If you need to go ahead and plan it out, and knowing to prioritize your schoolwork before you get on your video games, things like that. Okay, so I've got a solution for this. It might not be the perfect solution, but I've got a great track record, a lot of great feedback from parents. And I want to tell you about my classes at their level. Instead, we do a big disservice then when we go, okay, you're 12, let's put you in 6th grade class, without finding out if that's actually their level, right? Then they will be comparing themselves to their peers and feeling like they're stupid. It's more important that we just focus on their level, and they may maybe not even know what grade that level is, right? They don't need to know that they're behind. We're just going to see, let's learn fractions. And you get something like, I've got some books that don't have a grade. I like this brand, Humble Math, because there's no grade on it. It just says what it is. This is geometry. This is geometry. It's probably on a 5th grade level, but you know what? If your 9th grader does it, they're not going to know the difference. So they don't need to know the comparison that exists, right? Pre-algebra, you can have them do this when they're in high school. Maybe the word pre-algebra tells them that it should be middle school, but hopefully, I just like this brand because it doesn't have a grade on it. Or the Kumon books have a range, so it says grade 6 to 8. Those books are actually pretty advanced for that. So, so I'm not sure. Okay, anyways, let me tell you about my classes. Okay, this is what we do in our classes. When we can form a class for remedial teens, and I also try not to use that word. They may not know what that word means, but we just say, hey, this is math for teens. And the parents know that's for the teens who struggle with math, right? This is writing for teens, beginning writing for teens. Let's talk about writing paragraphs. They don't need to know that the curriculum I'm using is for 4th grade, right? So we just call that beginning writing for teens. Okay, so they can make similar friends. They're not alone. They're going to be with a group of people. Like my classes usually have about 10 kids, 10 teens, and everyone's in the same boat. So there's no comparison, there's no shame. And it's really just beautiful. They're also able to have fun with these peers, relating to them, you know, making little jokes, having a low pressure atmosphere because you're having fun with your friends. We also bring some games in as much as we can when we have time for that. And providing snacks or just whatever that we need to do to make it feel more low pressure, friendly, and supportive. I go at their own pace. So in my math classes, I might not promise that we're going to get through a certain curriculum in a time period, because it's not about the book or the curriculum, it's about the student. And I tailor my class to meet their needs. And if it comes up that they're weak on a certain skill that we went over last month, then we go over it again. And we just keep reviewing. We like inch along, review, move forward a step, review, move forward a step, right? And just trying to be as positive and loving as I can, right? Without even bringing up anything that they're struggling with. Okay, my teen beginner classes, like I said, I've got math fundamentals and beginning writing. These are the two things I see them struggle with: beginning writing and math. I teach other classes as well, and there are writing assignments in other classes, but the beauty of that is the writing assignments are for homework and nobody sees each other's. And then if some of them are writing like 2-page essays and some of them give me a paragraph, fantastic. I give both of those equally a good grade because I know it was on their level. So like if this is in my psychology class or my leadership class and I assign them a writing prompt, if I get a paragraph back and I can tell that it's a teen who struggles, they still get an A because they did their ability, right? They did what they could do, and they turn in their assignment, which is fantastic. Like a lot of homeschoolers don't even do that. So I just celebrate whatever they can do. Okay, my beginning writing class, I've got something in July, and this is free. They can come and try me out. It's just a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we're going to cover some beginning writing skills throughout the course of the week, touch on grammar and punctuation, get them writing a paragraph on the Monday and the Wednesday for homework, sometimes write in class and participate or writing together. Another thing I like to do for these beginners is to model the writing process. So we will write together as a team and put together an essay together with me typing, and they can all see it on my screen. So we're structuring it a certain way, and I'm explaining what I'm doing as I go. And then I'm saying, okay, who has an example for this? We need an example of when you felt lonely, or we need an example of a product that benefited your life, whatever we're talking about, right? And then different people participate, and we just put the examples in the paper, and they're able to see with live modeling how we're writing. So their homework might be a paragraph, but then in class, we might be writing a full essay, right? So I tried to demonstrate the step ahead of them so that they know well ahead of time what that might look like. They're being exposed to it before they're being required to do it. And the same thing in my math classes, by the way. We do some math together as a class for a few weeks before it's homework, just so they can be exposed to it multiple times before the pressure's on them to come up with it on their own, right? Come up with the answers. In the school year, I've got this class Mondays at 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. It's filling up quick. There's a high need for this with our teens. And this class, it is specifically for remedial teens, right? They will be with them with their own age group. I mean, there's a spectrum, obviously, but they're not going to be with the 4th graders. That's the main idea, is to get them separated from the age at which the level is usually applied to. And then the math fundamentals, my free summer class there is July 15th, that week. I've got a few different math and writing classes as well. If you've got other kids who are more on level, just reach out to me and I'll give you all my information. You can try some of my free summer classes. And then the school year class for math fundamentals for teens to be determined. I still need to schedule that. And I like to schedule around your guys' needs. For me, I don't care if I do it on Monday afternoon or Thursday afternoon, right? But one of you might care. So I really like to hear your requests and how can I accommodate your family. If I haven't scheduled it yet, I'd be happy to schedule it around your needs. I do have the grade 4 and 5 set Thursdays 11 to 12. And right now, today, nobody signed up for that one yet. I might just switch that one to teens, to remedial class for teens. It's the same content. Teens usually need to polish up their times tables and go over fractions some more. 9 times out of 10, when I meet a teen who's struggling, that's where they got stuck. They hit fractions. I'm like, I give up. This doesn't make any sense, right? So they need someone to explain that 4th grade math level to them. I just don't like calling it 4th grade because I don't want to insult an 8th grader and put them in 4th grade math, right? So we just need a special class where they can be with their peers, working on some math skills through Humble Math, through one of these books that doesn't have a grade on it, and then they can be supported and they don't need to be compared to anything, right? That's the main idea. Okay, also recommended if they're struggling with confidence, if there's some ADHD in there, all these other things that teens have to deal with. This is how I use my psychology degree. Besides the tutoring and working on the writing and the math, I love to mentor them in leadership, personal development, teach them psychology, and then the finance and entrepreneurship. Obviously, that's not psychology, but that's a twist on math. Another option for math, if they're struggling with math and they don't like pages and pages of worksheets on math, let's talk about real life. Let's talk about finance in real life. And then there's math that goes along with that. So that's called consumer math. That's a part of this class. And then they'll learn about how businesses work and how they could find their own marketable skills or sell their products or resell existing products. Lots of options there. So we cover all of that with basic economics, and there's some math involved there. There's some easy, gentle math. And if that's a funner way to learn math, they might want to do finance and entrepreneurship instead of just having math worksheet. You know what I mean? Okay, back to the psychology class. I teach psychology where we're learning about these psychologists in history and their philosophies, but then we do it in a way we can relate, and then we can learn from it. So when we learn about autism, we also talk about person in history. So we learn about Temple Grandin, we watch the movie about Temple Grandin, and then we say, do any of you struggle with X, Y, and Z? How did she overcome it in the movie? And then what kind of therapies are there? So we talk about the therapies. I even model some of the therapies with the students if we want to do that. So we try to make it relevant to their lives as much as possible. And let's face it, so many people in the world today, all of these students, they've got anxiety, they've got some depression, they've got little quirks or OCD or ADHD, and they probably want to talk through it and know how other people have overcome those things in history and what types of tools and therapies are available to them. What can they do to overcome that? So we really focus on applying it to us and learning those lessons. Even if you don't have any big diagnosis, we all need to manage stress, right? So my psychology class is just relevant to everyday living, the things that we go through as humans. We all need psychology, in my opinion. So it's funny, I kind of joke because in math, they might say, when am I going to use this in life? And I try to answer that question. I try to say, well, an architect does this and whatnot. But like with psychology, if they want to ask, when am I going to use this in life? I literally say every day, you need this in your life. This is how you think. This is how those thoughts translate into feelings. And then when you're experiencing feelings, what do you do about them, right? How do you communicate it with your friend? When you're in a conflict, how do you talk through a situation? This is all so important that we all need to cover this before we get to be, an adult having a midlife crisis, having a big addiction issue, having a big severe relationship crisis, going to counseling when we're 40. We need to start these skills when they're teens. It is so important to bring them into psychology class and to start having these conversations. So there's my plug for psychology. Leadership and personal development. We talk about leaders in history there. We talk about self-care, more psychology with, we're not talking about psychology as far as the principles and the names, right? But we're talking about self-care and the stress management as well in that class. How to develop and work on our bodies, how to set goals physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, lots to cover. And then what leadership traits do we want to develop in ourselves? I have them set goals and have like journal entries, writing reflections on how they can be more courageous in their life, you know, how they can be more persistent in their life, etc. All right. If you want to register for a class in the school year or one of my free summer classes, I also have regular paid summer classes. The summer classes are not on my website. You need to reach out to me personally for that. But if you go to lucialearning.com and go to programs, you'll see the option for tutoring and then the option for classes together. And it shows you all my online classes. I will be teaching some in-person math. I do that upon request. So right now I have 2 in-person math classes where the parents just wanted to host it in their homes. They help me gather a group of friends and we all sit around the dining room table and do math together once a week. That works really well, actually. I mean, a safe environment in their home where they're able to invite their friends and then hang out afterwards. That works really well. I'm also going to be doing some math at Paper Plane. That's a business for homeschoolers in Sandy, where you can come in person or you can watch online. So if you're sick, you stay home and just do it online. Or if you're out of state, you just join the online and you can still do the math with me. A lot of people think that they can't do math online, but once they get on with me, it works surprisingly well. I share my screen where the math problems are on the screen. We get out our whiteboard and you can write directly on it if we're doing it together. Or I've got my whiteboard right here in my office. I set up my whiteboard where we can look at it and do the math together. And then they all have their workbooks or their paper at home. And it works surprisingly well. It works really great. Okay. And then to hear more from me, please keep in touch. If you give me your email, I will be sending you periodic newsletters or updates, or I'll let you know when I add a class or what else is available. I post a lot on Facebook. You can follow me either my own name, Annalise Jones, or Lucia Learning, the business page on Facebook. For both of those, I post a lot. And then, yeah, give me your email to subscribe to my list. Okay, those are your options. I would love to hear from you. My main goal here is really just to support homeschooling families. If you've gotten the idea to pull out of public school and you have a vision, but you don't know how to implement it, or you know you don't want them in school, but it's just a lot to do at home, right? And I totally get that. I want to support you, right? And sometimes that means counseling. Sometimes that means just a talk with you and we work through it. And sometimes that means one of your subjects you delegate to me and then I tutor your child in that subject, or they work with me in a class. If they're struggling in the class, we might move them to an easier one, or I might say, can you stay after class 15 minutes and do some extra coaching with me? And sometimes I offer that for free. Or if it's a more of an ongoing issue, then you can get tutoring with me. But I really just love going the extra mile, whatever I can do to build the confidence, to give love to these kids and to support you as an overwhelmed homeschool mom. I believe in you and I want to help make that easier. I want to help give you information, both on the academics and on the psychology of what is going on in your kid's brain, right? And how to motivate them, how to inspire them, how to help them love learning, how to help them love life, right? That's what I'm all about. So I hope to hear from you. You can reach out to me, annalisejones@gmail.com, which is probably how you got this recording. So please share this with friends and we'll be in touch. Goodbye.